So it's always good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you, my friend.
Dread,
And
Dread's
I
at
know.
F3 Ski? F3 Ski?
Yeah. So there's like it's a group of guys who they go out to Vail, I believe, is where they go.
That's bougie.
It's a little bougie. It is a little bougie. TBH, as the kids say. But they go out there and they ski. There's a couple of weeks. In fact, it's gotten so big they have to do it on 2 different weeks now. It's probably like 100 guys. I think we talked about this, but that's where he is now. I presume, as of the recording of this podcast, that he may be on the slopes as we speak. It's very possible. I also presume that underneath his very, very highly technical ski boots, he's wearing the comforting and cradling and loving F3 sock.
Yes.
By Mudgear.
By Mudgear.
Mudgear socks.
Well, why would you?
Really, I should say it's
else?
Mudgear socks. Mudgear also makes F3 socks, but really the sponsor is Mudgear and the socks, the official sock of F3 Nation. That's, to be more clear, that's what we're talking about.
Right. Well, because I mean the slopes are too steep to ski with crappy socks.
There you go.
If you're going to be a winner, you're going to need a coach.
Sharpening doesn't happen by accident. A blade left untouched will rust, and a man left unchallenged will stagnate. Every man needs friction, resistance, and a whetstone to grind away weakness and reveal his true edge. Welcome to the Whetstone, where we reject comfort, disrupt the status quo, and forge men ready for impact. Hosted by Dread, Dark Helmet, and me, the Plague. This is where men step out of the drift and into acceleration, because iron sharpens iron, and no man sharpens alone.
And
we're back.
I love it. I'm sure guys listening are like, these guys are. It gets old. It never gets old like that. I don't know why.
No, well, here, it's funny. But back when Dredd and I were doing this, we're doing the 43 Feet podcast, many years ago.
Yeah.
Guys used to always be like, "Can you guys just hurry up and get to the substantive portion? Yeah, enough with all the vignettes and the this and the whatever." And I was like, "What do we call it? Not vignettes? What do we call them? Featurettes. Enough with all the featurettes and all this kind of crap. Just get to the stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. There's no fast forward on your machine. You can't skip 30 seconds."
I was trying.
Some people find us delightful.
I was trying to remember all of them. So there was the mixed egg, the Pullman, and then the substantive portion, right?
Well, we also would give like a regional shout out. I can't remember if like a regional T clap. We do that. I can't remember if we had a weird name for that one. I don't think we did. I think it was just a regional T clap.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have a tap as well. We'd have a tap.
Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. Somebody who, something that was going on. So
yeah, we've done some mixed egg questions on here.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
A few.
Absolutely. And for those who don't know, the reason that it was called mixed eggs, I'll just tell you, is because Dredd's brain is weird. We can all admit that. But all of us are. But he and I, when we met, like really got to know each other, like we had kind of bumped into each other before at like events or something, and I'd said hi to him probably or something. But when he and I got really to know each other, it was on a trip to Toledo for a grow ruck. And it was the strangest Airbnb that I have ever stayed in and may ever stay in. I still have pictures of it on my phone where I'm like, But one of the things that they left us as like a, like sometimes they'll leave like a bucket with wine in it, or they'll leave you like some treats or something, right?
Yeah.
Well, this had treats. It did have a bucket of wine, which Gecko out of the PNW drank nearly all by himself that evening.
Nice.
And there was also this carton of eggs that were clearly picked up from the chickens that were on the property. First of all, there were chickens on the property at the Airbnb, which is its own whatever. And so, but it was like a green one and a brown one and like a little tiny white one and a big, like there was like it was this odd collection of eggs. And so we decided, since that gave us more questions than answers, that would be the thing that we would use as
be the mixed egg.
The moniker, yes, for asking questions is, I'm a mixed egg.
I like it. I did
So there
not
we
know
are.
the backstory
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got just a plethora, right, of like channels
Ooh.
and content
Yes.
and that guys
Yeah.
are listening to and engaging with. And I think
And we're
the
grateful for all of
our
them.
episode from last week, right, on sort of failing to fail, and was really kind of sent me down this like, where am I not failing? And that's the problem, right? The problem is I'm not willing to fail.
Okay. I was going to ask what do you mean, but yeah, where you're like,
So
you're holding back
yeah,
because you're afraid to fail.
yeah. And I think it's given, so I had some stuff at work this week, presenting in front of different people, and just recognizing like, if I fail, I can't wait to see what I learn, and that was actually a really helpful mindset for me. So it's always interesting to me how SkyQ uses the things we talk about, and maybe it's just for me, but hopefully not. But one of the questions that I saw that came up,
And you know what? I got to tell you this too, but I just won't necessarily please Dredd if he hears it. So hope he doesn't get mad at me, but I've never been a fan of the term SkyQ. It really, I
it
don't know.
bothers you.
It does.
Yeah.
Like, just say God. It's
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
It's God.
Yeah.
I don't like to, I don't know why I do that. It just kind of like, I get that it's like trying to make it more generic for a guy who like, whatever it is that you believe, and we're not here to, whatever, but anyway, keep going. But
I love that you bring that up, because I had a guy locally that was like, does F3 believe in a different God? Like, because we're saying SkyQ, it's like, oh my gosh, who is that? Who's
like, we just don't need help. People pointing to us and being like a cult, we don't need help. So
yeah, well then God, I do think God.
But anyway,
I love it. No, but there was a really good question in there, and this is Zelensky out of Rock Hill, but he's just asking me.
I hate him.
Do you?
I'm just kidding. No, I really like him. He's a really good dude. He's the Nantan there now. I was down there just a couple weeks ago for their changeover, and I went over and
well, he's got a great question. So he's asking like, which F do things like Q source and free delete fit under? And I know locally, in my mind, I've kind of put them in second and third.
Sure.
But I don't know. I would be curious, like, how do we process that?
You guys. So Zelensky, you may not know, he does not sell auto parts. So I don't know how he got his name exactly. I know he explained it to me once, but I don't remember. But he sells insurance. But you guys love to categorize stuff. Like somehow it makes everybody feel better, which is fair. There's utility to it. I get it. So I would say things like Q source, free to lead, like book studies, things like that. If they are leading you to faith, then they would be third F, right? That would make sense, right? Some guys say, oh, Q source, that's third F. All right. I mean, okay, I'm listening. I'm open. I'll hear you out. I don't think it is, but okay. Or they'll say, I mean, like a Bible study. Obviously, guys say that's third F. That's reasonable, I suppose, right? That makes a little more sense. We locally, guys, we do we've adopted a highway.
Oh, cool.
So we have like a litter pickup every quarter that we go do. And some guys are like, well, that's third F. And I'm like, sure. I mean, it's serving the community. If it helps you to categorize it in some way so that you feel like it's okay that you did it, like if that's what you need, okay, great. Categorize it however you want. Like but I don't understand sometimes the drive to do that, because the third F, we just say, is a belief in something bigger than yourself. It's the dynamite. It's that thing that happens inside you. It's individual to a man to say, I now want to live for something more than just me. Right. So it's all third F in a way. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's the whole point. We get you out here and get you fit, unlock you a little bit, right? Dust you off, get you in community with other men who can teach and lead and support and structure and strengthen and all that kind of stuff, right? And that leads you to say, now I will improve my relationships, particularly with the divine, right? That's the most important, thing, right? Is to develop that relationship with the divine, because that will color all the other relationships that I have and my ability to be effective as a man on this planet.
Yep.
So if it helps you to say picking up trash is third F, great. Now you're justified. It's okay. Oh, there, it's blessed. Now you can say it's F3 and you can be happy in your life. That's great. Like if you want to say Q source is third F and that makes you feel better somehow, knock it out, baby.
Yeah.
Blessed, right?
Yeah.
If that makes it, but Q source, a study of Q source or getting guys together to study a thing, or whatever, like, especially if it's not a religious or what we would consider like a traditional kind of faith sort of a thing. I would say, especially like Q source, that is a study of a leadership framework.
Leadership. Yeah.
Right. And so I would say, I guess if the kind of the question behind the question, maybe behind the third question, but like the question behind the question is, who should be in charge of Q source in my region? I kind of feel like, maybe I'm wrong, I'll have to ask Z, but if it feels like that's the question, like who ought to be heading up this effort? Well, I'd get myself an LDP guy, right? I'd get myself a guy who is dedicated to leadership development. I would put him on the team because as Nantan, I should be sitting back and saying, what is the cultural and spiritual need in my region? Guys need some more formal LDP. They need some schooling and apprenticeship opportunity and failure, right? So they need a little more schooling. And if that's what Q source is, you want to have a Q source study to get that schooling in there, then I would hand that to an LDP guy. And I would say, you're now the Q of this. Make sure the outcome is something special.
Yeah.
Right. And that guy theoretically ought to recruit some doers. Maybe he launches a Q source at every single AO. Maybe he launches a Q source where that everybody converges once a week. Maybe he, I don't know how he decides to execute that in whatever way makes sense for his local region, his local guys. But that's who I would hand it to. I would get an LDP, a guy, my SLT, and I would hand it to him and say, be responsible for the outcome. But if you look at your region and you say to yourself, the guy that I feel like I want responsible for that is our third FQ, fine.
Right.
I'm not here to fight you. Do it, however you want to do it. I don't care. Not a core principle, right? But the idea that it needs to fit neatly into some sort of pre-prescribed. I mean, I love that there's a coffee queue at like AOs in the Midwest. You guys have them in Omaha, don't you? Like guys who are like, maybe not officially, I don't know, but
our site, not officially. Our site queues. So a lot of them do, on-site coffee is what we call it.
Right.
And then we got a guy
but
named
the site queue's the guy.
Khakis hosts Khakis Cafe, which is just coffee at his house every Monday, which is after a Murph, right? And people love it.
You go to the Murph, go to Khakis.
Yeah, that's good.
That's just right. So that's good, and he just decided to step into the breach and do that. But I know like they do what they call PLC, parking lot coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen it up in the Northeast, in the Midwest, like St. Louis area, and some of the greater mega region stuff that's happening out there, and different places where they'll do it. And sometimes these guys have a coffee queue like that. That is his job at the AO. He makes sure coffee's there every week.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Is that third F or is that second F?
That's more
But
second.
if it's a second F activity that leads to a third F discussion, which is it, Plague? Which is it?
I don't know.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
it's so funny to hear you because locally we've got, we have.
Go ahead, lay it out.
First, second, third F. Q, right?
Most guys do, but
yeah. But hearing you say an LDP queue, like, or just this idea that the SLT roles that you have should align. Well, I'm going to ask this as a question: should they align with the needs of your packs, or with?
Well, do you really think like is that? Go ahead. Is free to lead what?
Well, should because I think we've aligned the roles with.
Should the things that we provide to the packs align with the needs of the packs?
No.
No,
they should be in direct opposition. They should be fighting the needs.
I think we've aligned them with like free to lead in the book and like, okay, there's 3 Fs, so we need leaders in all 3 Fs, But.
Yes. Now, I think there is some amount of value, right? And again, utility in saying, hey, 3 Fs is kind of what we focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Those are sort of the big buckets of, because if our job is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups for men in order to invigorate male community leadership, right? That's our job. That's our mission. And if we say to ourselves, the way that we do that is through this F3 framework, these 3 Fs, we get them fit, we fellowship them, and then we turn them loose on the world, right? If that's the way we do that, and that's kind of our focus as a region, as as an SLT, whatever, right? Then I would probably have people in charge of each of those things. Okay. Now let me throw it a different way. at the nation level, it used to be way back when I first kind of joined F3. It used to be there was only a few guys. I think I've told this story a little bit before, so forgive me if I'm repeating anything, but there were 4 guys who were in charge of everything, right? And it was Dredd, OBT, Jimmy, Crotch Rocket, Kotchett, and AP, Jason Silverstein, right? Who eventually moved out to Pacific Northwest, but those are the 4 guys. And it was kind of like those 4 guys were like, well, we need some people to do some stuff. And so, you know what they decided was, we need a queue of plant, grow, and serve.
Oh,
well, that's not first, second, or third F.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, traditional sort of way. Right. So just because we've sort of ended up, and I feel a little bit responsible for this, if I'm being honest. Well, I'm serious, because what happened was that's what I learned through F3, as I said, first, second, third F. Got it. Right. Because that's what my Nantan did. And that's what had been passed to him, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, this is just a program. So when I started taking it on myself to travel around the country to start teaching people F3, some of these newer regions and stuff, I was like, well, here's what it is. You get a first F guy, second F, third F guy. And I can't remember when I named him, but like, you'll still see it. It's in documents where it's like, oh, he's Mr. Party Pants, or, he's the, the glue boy or whatever.
I think they're on a lot of websites out there with the,
right.
Yeah.
Right. That is crap I made up in the hotel room, like moments before going out to, teach Louisville what it's like. And I typed it all up, and then I printed a home, whatever it was, 50 copies or something out of the hotel thing. And I was like, okay, guys, here it is. And I'm making this stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Right. So it's like, that's where it ended up. But that's because that's what I thought it was. And it is that. And that's a great framework to use if it works for you.
Yeah.
Right. I think plant, grow, serve might be a great way to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's any number of ways to chop it up. The point is not to make sure that you run the freaking program and that there's some set way to do it. The set way to do it is this. There is a Nantan, right? There is a Nantan. The way I'm doing Nantan, the way that Slaughter did Nantan, the way that Dredd did Nantan, we've structured that SLT differently.
Yeah.
Each time. And and this is how it got, when I became part of the SLT at the nation level, when Dredd sat down, I remember we went to lunch, and I pulled him to lunch to try and get to talk to him about something totally different. And then he sat down and we kind of whiteboarded it right in front of me on his little iPad, and he just drew it all out. And he was like, what are the functions? Like, what are the functional things that we do in F3? Boop, 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 boop. And culture was one of them. And he said, so we're going to put heads of these things, right? Of these functional areas. Yeah. And one was expansion, one was, I don't even remember now what all the things he wrote. One of them was culture. And he said, you're going to be that guy. Right. But it was, now how many regions have a queue of culture?
I don't know.
There might be some, I don't know, but I would lovingly say, I guess 0.
Well, they all do. Huckleberry's, he serves the whole nation, right?
Sure. If you want to adopt Huckleberry into your region, call him your queue of culture, fine. But as far as approximate leader on the ground in a region, there's very few, if any, that I know of.
Yeah, I don't.
That have something like that, right? Would that be a useful thing for guys to have? Yeah, maybe. Do you know what I mean? So the program is this. You have a guy, a leader, a man who theoretically, as Nantan, ought to be thinking and saying, what is the vision? What is the vision? What are the cultural and spiritual needs? Now, he could look small and say, what are the cultural, spiritual needs of my packs? That's good. That's a very good beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not for the invigoration of packs leadership.
Right. Yep.
It's for the invigoration of male community leadership.
Right.
Right. And so I would challenge a guy and say, if I'm the Nantan, I would sit and say, what is it my community needs? Right. And how do we function as a force for good in that community? And therefore, what are the things that we do? Well, we plant workouts. Okay, that's true. But to what end? Why do we do that? Okay, right. And I would probably make some notes there. Then I'd say, okay, well, we fellowship. Okay, well, why do we do that? What is the ultimate end of this? Well, if the ultimate end of this is male community leadership, then I might have a community liaison queue. If I was an Nantan, and I probably would say, hey, your job is to go to every church, every major business, every all the school district, to politicians, the mayor, everybody. And I would make that guy and be like, if we're here to lead in the community, I probably would go find out who the community leaders are, or the community managers are, if you will, right? Who's supposedly in charge of this stuff. And I would go infiltrate those organizations, and I would go apply the F3 leadership framework, and I would go make those places better, right? That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Now, in your area, probably something different, right?
Yeah.
You have to figure it out how you want to do it. Some guys would build it and go, now we have this force for good, and we're going to go around looking for things to do. Great, do that. I don't care.
Yeah.
But my point is that we get too caught up in this framework and too rigid about what's supposed to happen. I know we kind of function a little like the Army because, dread special forces, right? We function a little like that, right? But we're not the Army, right?
Yeah.
We function a little like your church because we've got this kind of the spiritual element and there's leadership, whatever, but there ain't no pastors in F3, right? And so the structure is whatever it needs to be wherever you are.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that, if any, is related to like kind of what we talked about last episode, right? Where like, well, the structure worked for the last guy and I don't want to break it. I don't want to break F3. And so then I don't want to change it. Cause I'm even thinking just locally, like I maybe am to blame for some of that, but I think what we've done is part of it for us, I don't know, tell me what you think of this, but part of it is we've tried to create additional leadership opportunities for the men, right? Because we feel like that, more opportunities, more chance to fail, and that's how the LDP works. And so then I think, but what I have seen us do is we've sort of created a role, so third F, and then we put a guy in that role that's good at leading group discussions or something, right? And so then that's where that has fallen. But he could just be the group discussion queue, or I don't know what we would call that,
or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you go, okay, but why do we need group discussions? Like, what is that for?
I think
what are we really doing there?
It gets men talking about ways they could improve their leadership.
So maybe he's the LDP guy, right? Maybe he's the self-improvement queue. Maybe he's the, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's the thing is it's like, go and meet the need of the men, go and meet the need of your community, go and like, just find the need, fill the need.
Yep.
That's a Tommy Boy. I don't know if he stole it from somebody, but that's who I stole it from.
Yeah.
Right. But that's kind of the deal.
Yep.
Right. So now I will admit that it's useful for us to have something that we can point to and go, hey, this is, a first, second, third FQ is a great way to start. But it's kind of like everything else in F3 where we would say, okay, only use the stuff that we talk about at a nation level if it's useful to you.
Right.
Right. Adapt it as you see fit. We're going to give you what we think is kind of best practice, try and keep it to where we say, hey, these are sort of the principles that we're trying to accomplish. These are the way that we would like you to think about it. We think it's useful to think about it.
Yeah.
But apply it however it works on the ground there. So I don't know if that answered the question that you had like an hour ago or whenever we said.
Yeah.
I
think it's great. Right. And I think this is, it's amazing how, and I don't know if this is, I have to think through, like, is this an actual thing or is this, am I making this up? But it feels like I don't have the ability to do that in other areas of my life, or at least I've told myself that. So like at work, I can't just change my title or like,
sure,
but I could certainly look at the needs of my organization and look at my team and go to the right people to say, hey, this is a need, right? Like this is, and so, but I think within F3, like we have that ability without all the red tape, maybe. I don't know, but yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I would say, we are much more of an individual initiative, sua sponte, do it, kind of it, right? And you won't find that everywhere, and you can't do that everywhere. It wouldn't make sense everywhere. If we did it at work, because it's not a movement, that's a business, it could be chaos. I mean, it could go very poorly, right? But let me ask you this. Is the title that you hold important to the work that you do? Right? Don't answer that. Just think about that, right?
Okay.
So, not you, but I'm saying a guy, right? So my title, I'll give you an example, right? My title is, I am the Senior Director of Culture and Engagement, Employee Engagement, right?
Is that your real title?
That's my real title.
Oh, nice.
Well, they were like, it's so bad. They were like, make up a title and and write yourself a job description and get in here and help. That's how I got that job.
So but, senior director.
Well, they had to put me a senior director because the amount of money I was asking for.
Oh, hey, there you go.
And they were like, well, we don't pay directors that much. And I was like, I guess you're going to have to figure out a way. And they were like, well, if we made it a senior director role, we could pay you that much. And I'm like, then I guess that's what you need to do.
Yeah. Love it.
So, yeah, because I wasn't going to, well, anyway, that's neither here nor there. So my point is, so that's my title, right? Now, I could very easily go, well, that's not really an employee engagement activity. Or that's not really a culture activity. That's somebody else's problem, right? Or, I don't care what they call me. I think I've said it on the podcast before. Like, they made a huge mistake not hiring me as the janitor, because this is the stuff that I would have done anyway, and they would have gotten clean floors, and they could have paid me about a third, you know, what they're, you know what I mean? Right? Yeah. Maybe less, maybe a quarter, you know, what they're paying me. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So when go ahead.
Well, it's interesting the number of things that I can speak for myself that I've allowed to be like a perceived barrier to like exploring failure, right? So like the title thing, right, is like, well, just because that's not in my title, or you know, like or because it is in my title, you know, I don't know. I think that's maybe where you're going. It's just kind of interesting, like these sort of worldly things that are like, oh well, I'm not that, I'm not in that department, so I can't do anything to solve that problem. But
I mean, I look over, like, I'll give you an example. I'm in our Slack all day long, and they drug me in to these channels. They were private channels. I didn't know they existed, right? But our sales development reps, so our openers, our callers, you know, the dial for dollars guys and gals, right? And then the closers, right? You know, of the sales process, right? So they have different chats, and they drug me into both of them because they were like, we need, you know, energy. We need more. We need you to see what's going on because we want to spread this, you know, we want to, right? So, that's culture, sure. But like the salespeople, they're already doing it. Why don't, you know, right?
Yeah.
And so you know, but I get drug in there. And so it's like, okay, we can do this, right? But my point is, now I got drug in there just to see what was going on, like, write, you know, happy messages to people. Well, as it turns out, people are turning around and going like, hey, do you have any suggestions? And I'm like, hey, I'm not actually in sales, right? I didn't say that. I don't say that to them, but they're like, how do I close this guy? How do I sell this? What do I, you know? And I'm like, well, I'm not really in sales, but let me tell you what I would do. And then go, you know, if you want to run that by your manager, go ahead, right? Yeah. Because I am a really good salesperson, right? Yeah. And it's obvious because the way that I answer questions, the things that I say, I can't help it. It's not the thing that I think about.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and sales have skyrocketed.
I mean, through the roof.
Clearly. Yeah.
Through the roof, because life's too short. But the point in saying that is that don't get so caught up in the program, in the structure, in the rigidity, in the whatever. You can have influence wherever you want.
Yeah.
You can do the things that you need to do in F3, at work, whatever. I mean, if you're doing your job and you're getting your job done, right, the things that are truly relevant, and you went out and you added value to a different department in your company, anybody going to be mad at you?
No.
There
might be a few people that are like, they feel like I'm stepping on toes, but I mean.
Sure. I mean, if you go in there like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah.
Right? But if you go in there with loving, quiet, marginal influence, and if I say, hey, I'll give you an example, right? So it could look like something like this, right? I go, hey, Plague, because that's what I call you at work, right? You know, hey, Plague, I love what you guys are doing over there in IT. Like, I think it's super interesting. Could I buy you a coffee? I just want to ask you some questions. Right? What are you going to say? No?
Right.
No. Of course you're going to be like, oh, sure, we can figure that out. So then we get together.
Okay.
Same. I only drink. You know, I do that all the time. I'm like a hashtag not coffee.
Not coffee.
That's what not coffee. But you know, if I said that, you'd be like, sure, absolutely, right? And we get together, then I would ask you a bunch of questions. Now, I might not make any difference in that call, right? In that interaction. But now I made a couple deposits, you know, into the emotional bank account, right? Now we're familiar. Because me and it doesn't hang in this office, but it used to hang in my office at work, right? Always play the long game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking so far down the road. I might not have the change that I'm looking for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. I don't know, right? When it's going to come around. But I'm going to plant the seed and I'm going to start working toward that, knowing that that's the vision of what I have in the long term. And I would
Right.
say it's the same thing in F3, it's the same thing everywhere. And the way I describe it is funny because it's come up a couple times in meetings and things this week. The way I do it is I take this thing that I know that I want, right? So if, take my mouse, right? If this is the thing that I think needs to be done or that I want or the outcome that I'm looking for, right? What I do is I just stick it up on this shelf over here. And I stick it up there and then I wait. And I wait for God to nudge it toward the edge. And when it falls over the edge, I'll catch it.
So then
That's the
you
way I do it.
don't get stressed about,
No, I don't care.
yeah, deadlines and timelines. And because I've got like 3 things that came up today that all are due by the end of the day, and
Who
we sort of
says? Your boss?
yeah,
Are they things that are they deadlines that you put on there? Are they deadlines that were put on there for you? Are they like, what does that mean? What is a deadline? Does anyone actually die?
no,
Okay. Well, that's a place to start.
the more I reflect, sort of self-reflect on it, I do think, related to the failure piece, right, is I have, like, this has been a barrier to allowing myself to fail, is these sort of made up notions about
Yeah.
like a title and what I can do inside of there, and and what a title means. And I was just telling somebody else this morning, like, one of our previous episodes is like, having a different title gave me more responsibility, but it doesn't necessarily change who I am or what I'm good at, or like, and so I think, it's recognizing like the mission doesn't change likely, right? And that's
Yeah.
like, there's like a small part of me that's like, well, maybe it did, but it totally didn't. Like, I don't
Well,
know.
and some of the question too is whose mission are you on?
Yeah.
If you're on your mission
Yeah.
and you're just living in the job thing and that's a place you can apply your mission, cool. If my job, if my mission, my purpose on earth, right, is to help people to overcome the beliefs that they have that limit them and limit God in their lives, right?
Mhm.
If that's my job is to help them to overcome those and to look past those and to think outside the box a little bit or whatever, however we apply that, then it doesn't matter where I am, right? I know why I'm there. So that's why it's interesting when they drag me into these chats, they're not my department, have nothing to do with me directly. I report into HR. Does my boss even know that I'm doing it? No. Do I need to tell her? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe she wants to know. Maybe she doesn't. I don't know. Doesn't matter, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, so what do I do when I'm there? What I can't not do.
Yeah. Well, and then in terms of capacity, right? Because that's the other thing I hear people always talking about, like, and the question you were asking me is like, you have to own what you committed to yourself, right? So like, if,
Sure.
I don't know, and do your current responsibilities well. It would be similar to like when we've talked about, um, sometimes guys want to go serve a cause before they've figured out how to be a good husband and a good father. And it's sort of like,
Go for it.
yeah,
Let me know how that goes for you.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is really good. And I think the question about, that Zelensky had, right, about like, what's the role? And, I think what's great is, right, there's a lot of opportunity in F3 so look at the community that you're serving and then fill the need, find a
Yeah.
need, fill a need.
I was driving around with my middle daughter in particular. We took her out shopping and kind of daddy daughter day. I know she's 20, but I can still take her on a daddy daughter date. That's still a thing.
Yeah.
And I haven't handed her off yet, right? So it's not somebody else's responsibility. Yeah, she's still mine. But we were out there and she was talking about like what she want to do when she grows up, what does she want to do for, a living and job and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, I'm just realizing like I could do a lot of things. Like I don't have to have, I don't have to follow this path because she got interested in doing nails. She's like, I could just do nails like out of my
Mhm.
house. Like that's a thing I can do. And I was like, yeah, babe. And as we're driving down the road and I'm pointing to all the businesses around, I said, honey, all this is made up. All this is made up. It's all made up,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's all made up. And same thing in F3.
Yeah, and it's sort of, some of it is stuff we made up, right? And some of it may be stuff that the world made up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it may be
We
tough
made it up to meet a need. We made it up to be in a system that helps in some way. Whether that gets corrupted or not is a different story. But like the auto parts guy, you know, started the auto or the garage, you know, to fix cars. Like he didn't start that because he was just like, cars are amazing, you know, like, and it's just, and that's all I want to do. And I just want to be around cars. He had to fill a need, right? You know, somebody had a broken down car and he's like, I want to serve people. And this is the way that I'll do that.
Right.
You know, so he made it up. He just,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's also this, you know, a little bit of what we're talking about, and maybe we can dive in just a little bit to, you know, there's just like the idea of the messy middle, right? Sort of like, you know, leadership gets messy, and within F3 we have some things, right? And I know we've talked about before, like leading a workout for your first time, or even just like showing up to a workout that another guy is leading, some of those things that maybe prepare us for chaos. But we also want to kind of dive into some of the Zebra Jockey stuff, and I would be curious. Yeah, I know when we've talked about it before, this is maybe one of your favorite sort of concepts, and I don't know if you would be willing to just kind of give us an overview, like when you think about Zebra Jockey and sort of where that fits or why that's helpful for men. I would love to kind of hear what's been your experience with that.
with zebra jockeying.
Yeah, like what even is that?
So I would say, so for guys who haven't listened and heard it before, right? Because I think we've mentioned it here in the past, right? The idea is, Dred's idea was that, you know, if you're a guy looking to get to town and you're waiting outside a barn for a horse to come out so you can ride it into town, if a zebra comes out, why wouldn't you, you know, if it's headed to town, jump on, right? That's what an adaptive leader would do. An adaptive person would do, is they would say, oh, okay. I mean, if an ostrich running backwards comes out, like if it's headed to town, hop on.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't really matter. If a guy is super rigid about the way that he looks at things, he'll wait there for a horse.
Right.
He may not even recognize that he's standing outside a zebra barn because he's like, barn means horse, I will wait for horse, you know? Right. So if you get too rigid in it, it's not that it's bad per se. It's really just more that you will limit your ability to be effective. You will limit your ability to be effective because you are looking for or trying to force a certain kind of method or a certain kind of outcome that is not forcible. You don't have control. I mean, we all know that's an illusion, right?
Yeah.
So if I can't, you know, unless you plan on birthing a horse and waiting for that, I don't know. There may not be horses in there. So whatever's coming out, head toward town, hop on.
Yeah. Do you think that's a little bit related? Like we're like looking for, and maybe this is the inverse. Like if a guy wants to lead in some capacity in F3, but he is waiting for a second F or a first F or a third F role.
Right, waiting for a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody to vacate a spot.
Yeah. Like, is that kind of related? Like, is there some?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. What? It seems like you agree with that. So why do you think that sounds related?
Well, because to me, it seems like what's the goal, right? So I love that if the goal is to get to town, then whatever's gonna get you to town is the animal you should hop on, right?
Yeah. Ta-da! Right answer.
Yeah. Why didn't he call it?
If a big guy, if like a defensive back comes running out of there, he's headed toward town. Maybe he can carry me. I don't know.
Yeah, hop on.
How far's town?
Yeah, but it is interesting, right? If we're only looking for first, second, third F, you know, opportunities, instead of saying, hey, I actually just had a guy reach out to me today that said, hey, I see some opportunities on the F3 Omaha website. Great. Let me get you some login credentials.
And that's F3.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Worrying about and waiting for a spot to vacate so that you can lead. I don't understand what you're saying to me right now. Like my head hurts when you say that.
Right.
You know, like that is just like a guy asked you to do that because he had a specific thing. So the Nantan may have called and said, hey, here, and if the Nantan calls you and says, I'd like you to be the first F guy, and then he doesn't expound to you what his vision for first F is, like why he wants you and what he wants to have happen in first F, then I think you may be just administrating.
Right.
I see this a lot where guys go, I want you to be the first F guy. Cool. What do you want me to do? Take care of first F. All right. Well, now we're in the this circular logic kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
And so how does that help anybody? Well, what's your vision for first F? Well, bro, if you don't have one, then maybe there isn't one. And why do you need a guy sitting in the seat if there's no vision for first F? I'm here to fulfill a vision or to work on a vision with you, maybe, or something like that. I don't know, but like if I'm taking over as Nantan, I surely would look at what's needed.
Right.
We're about to change the SLT at the nation level again.
Yeah.
Right. Because I see a need that I didn't know existed till I saw some data today. And I was like, holy moly, like this is a huge opportunity that we are leaving on the table if we don't start executing on this better.
Right.
And it's nobody's fault. It was just a thing nobody knew. We just started, like somebody had a thought and they're like, oh, I'll pull some data. And they're like, okay, great. Now, so what I would do is I might throw out there and go, hey, this is a need that I have, and somebody might step up, fine. Or I might just go find a guy. But if I'm a guy in a region, I don't need you to vacate a hole for me to go lead. If I look, how do you think the coffee guy ended up being the coffee guy? Either A, somebody had a vision and was like, to keep men here, we need a coffee guy. And they go ask that guy. Or what's maybe even more likely is a guy was like, we need to have coffee here. I will elect myself the coffee queue and we will start having parking lot coffee. Right. Yeah. I hope that's how it happened.
Yeah. Or they did a coffee off. And
an offie,
yeah,
a coffee offie,
and determined you make the best coffee, therefore you shall be.
Sure. However you selected it, right? Whatever. But I think that, I think that's the idea, right? Yep. I'll give you an example because that's what I apparently am doing. I think I've said that like 8 times this podcast. I apologize, but like, a guy, I heard about this. A guy looks and he says, hey, I see this group of guys. They're kind of newer guys accelerating. And I think that they need to be indoctrinated a little bit more, into the F3 world and framework, all this kind of stuff. Right. So what about we pull these guys together and have them meet once a week and teach them a little more F3. Now, there's no cue for that.
Right.
And somebody could go, well, isn't that the first FQ's deal? Okay, well, you guys can fight about it or you can just let it happen. The first F guy can go, cool, I will be, I think that kind of falls under here. So here's what I'll do. I'll share it out, whatever. You know what I mean? Like he'll figure out a way to be like, say, well, let's bring that under first F with me. Fine. Okay, great. But it's going to happen either way. Right. I don't care. Or he might go, well, that sounds like an LDP thing. We really should have the LDP guy weigh in on that. Like if that makes you feel better, great. If I was the LDP guy, I'd be like, see how effective I am? I'm so good at this. People are just falling over themselves to do LDP around here.
Yeah.
It's Tom Sawyer. The fence got painted.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then in terms of Zebra Jockey then, and thinking about, cause there are several chapters maybe to that.
Oh, yeah.
That we'll go through.
I'll go pull it up.
And so then I think I've kind of heard maybe you or Dredd mention before, it's a way to help men deal with chaos that is the world we live in. So, I would be curious, like when you think about, as guys are wondering what that is or other topics, what are some of your kind of favorite components of that Zebra Jockey that guys should be looking forward to? Or what do you find that you're using the most, or is it the whole thing?
As far as the book or kind of
like some
topics that are in there?
Some of the principles. Yeah.
Yeah. So many of them are so good, and some of them are, they all kind of like, there's a lot of relating to it, into one another. But, some of the main topics and ideas in Zebra Jockey, because Zebra Jockey was really written, and Dredd, obviously, since he wrote it, could tell you more about when and why. But this was really written kind of in that time frame of, like why, we're having these difficult discussions during COVID. Right. This is 2022 kind of stuff. And so it was like, so there's a lot in there about like the state, and statism and trying to limit a man's agency. And so when you think about Zebra Jockey, the adaptation is the important thing. So, and then you put it in the context of the world was telling us we have to do things a certain way, like in like an overreaching kind of a way. And like, how do we overcome that? How, what are the ways that we can live the most free, in that sort of framework? And so, I'm a big fan of chaos, right? I tend to thrive in, when there's not a lot of direction and not a lot of structure. I tend to kind of come in and help make sense of that and get people aligned toward. I mean, that's just who I am and how I am, and so that's part of why this culture deal works pretty well at work, and why being an Antan works pretty well for F3, and whatever, right? But there's a lot about how do we live our lives in a way that we have the most influence? How can we, the highest agency, right? High agency, high liberty, that kind of thing. I think that's kind of the overarching sort of, what I get out of the book the most is how to live so that you can do that, and how do you kind of fight the goo and sort of resist, the world and the creep of the world, and how it wants to overtake and put you in a box and keep you docile and keep you quiet because it loves the status quo.
Yeah.
Loves it,
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think to me, when I hear you describe that, I think it supplements the Q source pretty well. I don't know how.
Yeah.
How do you view that?
I mean, I wouldn't look at that and go, oh, this is a supplemental work to the Q source, right? It all came out of Dave's head. So it's gonna relate pretty, like there's gonna be a lot of over, because the same guy is having the thoughts, right?
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, I'm excited. I mean, I think as we're, looking at just the culture now, I think there's still a need for that, right? And I'm excited because I think a lot of what we have talked about, a lot of the progress that you guys have helped me make is in this space, but still needing some more, just like dialogue around like how do you truly stop abdicating agency to, and some things, like I'm abdicating agency to things that are good that maybe I've created, and then some things like, and so just being able to talk through that, I think will be.
That's
awesome.
you make a good point there. And I think there's a distinction maybe to be made. And that is that, when you're, you can look at it as abdicating agency, right? But sometimes it's reducing discretion. Right? There's a difference, so if I'm limiting my choices through a system, or something like that, right? Am I really putting my ability to choose out there for someone else to choose for me? Or am I putting a system in place? I've already made the decision, so give you, I was going to say,
give me an example,
but in my mind, it's kind of like this. I made a decision way back when that I was not going to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. That's a decision I made. And so now I can go to a bar or to a party or to a whatever, and I don't have to remake that decision. Now you can say, well, have I abdicated my agency because I'm not making that choice in that moment? No, I made the choice, decades ago. Right. So I don't need to think about it anymore. So that's the difference between then saying I'm now so the responsibility still lies with me. I made the decision. I am responsible for that decision. A similar thing might be, I'm trying to think of a good example, but you get the idea, right? That's, I made the decision, I'm owning that decision, and that's mine. And then if I come over here and I say, I'm choosing not to decide, and I would like someone else to decide for me in any given moment, that's different, right? Yeah. So if it's partially taking the agency or the actual choice, sure, but it's the responsibility that I'm really kind of offloading in there, right? So if I say, well, the church will teach my kids about Jesus, or about God. I mean, they will, sure,
Yeah.
but you're the one ultimately responsible for the education of your children.
Right.
You're the one that's supposed to be responsible. So if you're pushing your responsibility out to them and make it all on them, that's kind of a problem, because then you're going to come back and be like, well, they didn't do a good job. They didn't teach them the right things. Well, it's because it wasn't their responsibility. It's not their job. That was your job.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do that. Right.
Yeah. I like that differentiated between abdicating agency versus responsibility, and just sort of what that means. Cause I think that is different. I think, I don't know. I'm always like, I'll in some of these conversations that we have, I kind of get to this point where I'm like, well, shoot, like I've decided to follow this thing, but when I created that thing, I was sort of like, I had a different understanding of like my mission or my purpose.
Sure.
And so then it's like my brain will be like, but you got to follow the thing. But
now that's your desire to, because you love to have a system and you love to check a box, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that most guys do. So, adjusting the thing is not a problem because you made the thing.
Right.
Right. The problem is, I think, when you say, I'm not willing to even think about this, I'm not, I'm just going to push this off on somebody else and make it their responsibility, which is not bad. Right. So the abdication, or even the pushing off to something else, like if it's a thing that doesn't matter, if it's not mission critical, if it's, whatever. And I say, Dredd used to do this to me all the time, right? Is, we would come up against something and he would write me a text back or something. He'd be like, hashtag let helmet decide.
Yeah.
Now, is that because he's, but he put the responsibility on me because he doesn't need to make that decision, right? So is he abdicating his agency? No, he's just not being in charge of everything. That's, it's different too, right? There's like another element of it. But yeah, once you created a system and you have a way that you want to do a thing, and the decision has been made and you own the responsibility for that decision, apply that. I mean, that's the beauty of, you're reducing discretion. That's very different. That's a very important piece of being an effective leader, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I mean, I think the Zebra Jockey stuff and this sort of image of, is it a zebra that comes out, or is it a horse that comes out, and sort of this idea that like, I can't let it slide through my hands, right? Wild horses couldn't drag me anyway. I don't know.
If it's a wild horse that comes out of the barn.
That is not Geddy Lee.
Not Geddy Lee.
That is
not Geddy Lee.
Our friends, the Rolling Stones. But
yeah.
No, I'm excited. I think, at least for me, these conversations are it's just a time for me to kind of pause and reflect and really like kind of answer the question, like, what are we doing here? What am I doing? And I think, it's even more, valuable as I have tried to focus on my family. And I keep going back to one of the sayings or phrases that, you guys had kind of mentioned a long time ago, but the interruptions are the mission, right? That continues to just like echo in my mind when I'm trying to send an email and my kids are in here and I'm like frustrated, and it's sort of like, what am I doing here? Like, is this email gonna change the world?
If this email waits 5 minutes,
yeah, and it's like,
what happens? What if I don't send
it? Needs to,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So just as always, appreciate you taking time to talk through some of life's biggest questions.
Oh yeah, this is.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, man.
On our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. We've been broken, we've been bruised, but we rise again and we don't get to choose. Through the fire, through the fight, every man's story burns in the night. Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. On a story to From the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside, different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside, standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. Every man's got a story. Voices rise like thunder, they roll. Truth in the pain, it's shaping the soul. Chains may rattle, but they break in time. Every man's story is yours and mine. From the struggle to the glory, every man's got a story. In the dark or in the light, we keep marching through the night. Every man's got a story inside. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill. Every man to the mountaintop hill. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every